Hi everyone, Sue here from Authentic Smile. So today, this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and there's a lot that's been going on for a lot of us. What I would like to talk to today is to you all about today is fear. Now, I've recently had to revisit one of my own fears. So, for those of you who don't know me, um, I had a nervous breakdown and took an overdose back in 1997 now. So I was 22 at the time, and it really shook my world, obviously. I had an underlying physiological condition called PMDD, stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which meant that me and my hormones were not as one and didn't get on very well, and it sent me into an awful lot of mental confusion. And the life happened, something happened there, bad breakup, and I ended up on an emotional overload is pretty much the way that I would describe it, which resulted in having a nervous breakdown and taking an overdose because I just felt overwhelmed with all the emotions. Within 48 hours, I was going to be moving in with someone euphoric, thinking I'd found that person, the one for my life. And then 48 hours later, finding out that that person wasn't the one for me. And the the emotional overload of all those different, from happy to sad to angry to all those emotions, really was it was just overwhelming. And I hadn't given any thought about my suicide. It was my overdose. It was just, I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up again. I needed to. I couldn't cope with all of the emotions that were going on with me at that time. And so it took me a long time to overcome them. I had to deal with the physiological issue, and that meant by 29, I actually had a hysterectomy, and that did solve the physiological problem of me and my hormones. Me and estrogen and progesterone just are not meant to be. They are not my friends, sadly. So that was great because I felt a lot more back in control of myself. I could control the frustration and anger, because it always felt in my 20s that, you've got that light switch where you can, switch on and off very easily. And mine felt like it was kind of like in the middle of my back, that place where you've got an itch and you just can't get to it. And I just couldn't switch it off. So I kind of knew that I was going to explode, but I couldn't control that explosion. And after the hysterectomy, I was able to be a lot more in control of my emotions, in the sense that I could be a lot more aware and step away. But that doesn't mean to say that I had got rid of all the, you don't have a operation and then a hysterectomy, and then all of a sudden the negative thoughts that you've been building up for the last 10 or so years just disappear, because they didn't. But I did go to Peru for 3 months, and then end up staying for 6 years. So, as much as it was a brilliant experience, and I learned Spanish, si puedo hablar español, um, it didn't. It was a good avoidance as well, of not having. I immersed myself into a new culture, and immersed myself into a new language, and immersed myself into a new job, and so I didn't really have to. And I was euphoric. I'd got rid of a problem, an issue. So I was riding on that euphoric wave for quite a while. But there was an aftermath of, the negative thoughts, the negative beliefs. They were still there, lurking deep down. And it wasn't until I came back to England, that was back in 2011, that I slowly had to start to shift through all of the negative thoughts and beliefs that had become a habit even if I didn't necessarily believe them anymore, they were a habit. And so back in 2014, I decided to retrain. I'd been doing aromatherapy and reflexology, and I'd become a carer, and I needed to go through my mind and really take a long, hard look at it, and a long, hard look at what I was telling myself on a daily basis. So I went and did the Heal Your Life, Louise Hay Heal Your Life workshop, um, and life coach facilitator courses. And that really did help me to start examining what beliefs, what thoughts were still swimming and swirling around in my head, and to start picking one at a time and changing them. So, fast forward on to now, why am I talking about fear? And my biggest fear, I thought, was having got myself out of that dark and twisty rabbit hole, as I call it. My biggest fear was actually going back. I thought was going back down it, because that was the last thing I'd never want to go back to that place where I was in my 20s. It was not enjoyable. It was not nice for other people to be around. It was misunderstood quite a lot of the time. Um, so it was, yeah, just didn't want to ever have to go back down that dark and twisty hole, and get me to that point of not wanting to live again. And I lived like that for a long time in my 20s, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So then we have COVID and lockdown, and it's shaken all of our worlds to some degree. Um, and it shook mine temporarily. I had a job which I no longer could do. I had to make some choices to be able to protect my family, my parents, and so that meant I had to step away from that job. And with that came a lot of sadness, a lot of guilt, confusion, anger, and I was falling back down into that dark and twisty rabbit hole again. My biggest fear. And there was one weekend where I had a gum infection. So I had a lot of pain going on from that, and fear that I would have to go to a dentist, which I didn't want to do. I had a face ache, as I call it, a fibromyalgia attack. So put the pain of that in my face with the gum infection. And there was one weekend that I can remember, and I just wanted to honestly, if you'd given me an axe, I would have chopped my head off because the pain was so much. If you'd given me a gun, I wanted to blow my brains out. It was that I'd gone back there, and I never thought I would ever go back there again. And I did. And that is what I thought my biggest fear was. But actually, that was my false fear. My biggest fear was not going back down that dark and twisty hole. But if I did, would I be able to get myself back out of it? Has all the self care tools, the personal development courses that I have been doing, the retreats that I've been on, everything that I've been learning and studying for my own business and for my own self, would that all have been enough and ingrained in me to be able to, for me to get myself back out of it? And it did take a while. And one of the phrases that I quite often use is to help me cling on in those moments is, nothing is permanent, and emotions certainly aren't permanent. You can't be happy constantly, I've learned, and you can't be sad or angry constantly. So nothing is permanent. Emotions aren't permanent. It is just a wave, and a wave comes and goes. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some last a bit longer, but they do go and come in and out like they do on the ocean. So I had to, first of all, before I started doing my journaling and all of the self-care tools, I actually had to sit with those emotions and allow them to be, because and, ex- and experience them really. If I felt angry, to be angry, and to know that that's okay to be angry. I'm okay to be angry, knowing that I'm not going to do anything harmful to myself. It was okay to feel guilty. It was okay to feel shame, um, and allow all those negative emotions to come back and almost embrace them just as much as I would embrace happiness, because they're emotions, they're part of me, and I couldn't switch them off. I have learned that I have to acknowledge them. I had lost a job. I had lost a family I was working for. So there was grief there. And with grief, you can't just brush it under the carpet. You have to feel it. And it is a process, and it can be all consuming at that time. And it, but I had to keep reminding myself that this will pass. These feelings will pass, and have faith, trust, and surrender that I would be able to get through this wave. And this wave felt more like a bit of a tsunami wave, one of those great big crashing in waves. And I've avoided those waves, to be fair. I'm very good at avoidance, queen of avoidance. I've used many techniques, and drugs and alcohol and substances and even sex in the past as of avoidance. So I'm a good avoidance queen here. But I knew that this time I just had to feel. And that's scary, because, we think that those feelings are going to possibly lead on to something more harmful. And I knew that they weren't going to lead into anything more harmful. I knew that I'd got myself into a much better place, after all these years, that I wouldn't do anything harmful to myself. But I did have to ride that wave, and it was really uncomfortable for quite a few weeks, to be honest with you. It's kind of like, when you go to the shops, when you are allowed back out into the shops and trying clothes on, you put a top on or a jacket on, and for example, I've got a little jacket here. When I was buying this little very simple jacket, but you go in the shop, you put it on, and straight away I can tell, oh, is that comfortable? Oh, I quite like, yeah, that feels good. That feels comfortable. And it's like when you put on a piece of clothing and it's not comfortable, or it's scratchy, itchy, or something. And that's how my emotions felt. They felt like I was putting on a great big woolly jumper that just kept itching, and I had to take it off. But rather than taking that jumper off and just avoiding those emotions, this time round, I chose to sit in that jumper, shall we say, in with those emotions. And it took a few weeks, and I kind of knew it would do. Um, it had been a big processing to do, and these things can't just happen overnight. So I sat with those emotions. Then slowly I became ready to journal, to talk to people, to start processing it verbally, and then start to process it with my journaling, journaling is my best friend. It's my go-to tool, because when you have got no one else, there is always a pen and paper, or a computer if you have it, to tap away. And then when I've got a negative thought, I will allow it to go swimming around and around and looping in my mind. But when you're actually journaling, I'm not going to sit there and write, I feel worthless 9, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, because I'm going to catch myself and think, why am I writing this? So quite often with my journaling, I would start off with, I feel rah, 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 rah. But by the time I kind of written about it, I get to a much better place with myself. Well, actually, well, yeah, of course you feel angry because X, Y, and Z happened, but you now are you felt those emotions, you've processed, so good on you for doing that. And it gets me much leads me to a much better positive place. So fear, are your fears your real fears? Do you actually have a hidden fear behind all of that? Um, I've also, talking of grief, dealt with anticipatory grief for quite a few years now with regards to my parents. Who wants to lose their parents? I accept death, and I thought I had the fear of losing them. And actually, this process has been such a gift in itself because I realize now I didn't have a fear of losing them because I accept that they're going, we're all going to have to leave this earth and go on to whatever is out there and beyond. My fear was, would I be able to cope with the grief? And would it be all consuming? And would I be able to get myself back out of that bad place? So definitely I have found my true fear in this COVID time, and I find that a real blessing, a true blessing. I'm so grateful to all of the events that have passed, even though they may not have seemed good at the time. They certainly didn't feel good at the time, but I was able to, for the first time, feel the fear, not avoid it, not use old tech habits, techniques of avoidance. I didn't hit the bottle to drown out my sorrows or anything like that. I really did sit with it, and it has been an absolute. I have nothing but gratitude for that fear now. Um, it has taught me so much. It's taught me how far I've come along my journey, and that I am, yes, we can all have a wobble. Even those of us who work in this industry, helping people with mental health, we are still human. We can all still have our wobbles. But do we walk our talk and use the tools that we've trained in and that we are using and sharing with others? Do we actually do that for ourselves? Do we do the self care for ourselves, the self love? And I found out that I had quite a few things coming at me at once: pain in my face, the pain of the emotional turmoil of everything else, and I got through it. And it was a blessing to me this time in lockdown. I'm a fairly private and reclusive person anyway, partly because I've used that as an avoidance. If I don't go out there in the big wide world, I don't have to deal and face people whose energies just annoy me and trigger me. So I don't have to face and confront all those negative emotions that I've done so well to get through. Certainly within myself, but when you're putting yourself back out there in the big wide world, then there are going to be people that still trigger you and different things. And so the lockdown in itself hasn't been an issue for me. I no longer have to feel guilty about being a bit antisociable, maybe. Although I'm a lovely, friendly, bubbly person when you see me, I do like my solitude. I do like being on my own. It's where I can not listen to all the voices and advice and opinions of everyone else, and I can actually get to my core heart, listen to my own inner wisdom, and see what's really going on there inside. So I invite you to ask yourself, what are your fears? Um, Are they your true fears? Or are those fears actually hiding a much deeper fear that you didn't want to face or can't face or feel that you can't face? And if you are feeling emotions, whether they be happy, sad, negative, shame, whatever they are, resentment, judgment. I certainly know how to get on my soapbox sometimes, which judgment. That's one that I think most humans have to work on, especially in these times, because we're all sort of navigating our way through this very differently. And what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for another person. But that doesn't mean to say that either one of us is wrong. We're just all doing the best that we can for ourselves. So, what is your fear? What is your biggest, darkest fear? And is that really your fear? Is that covering up a hidden fear? And what do you use to avoid facing that fear? Because all the time you're avoiding that fear and not facing it, you will not move on forward into and finding that inner place, peace and calm that you're possibly that end light at the end of the tunnel. You won't get there, not for longevity. All the time you've got these big or little fears still attached to you in some way. So I'm always here. You can find me on Facebook at Authentic Smile, at the heart of your empowerment, as I now hopefully have moved more into becoming an empowerment coach to try and empower you. I can't solve your problems any more than anyone else can solve mine. I had to learn to take responsibility for my own problems, for my own fears. But I can certainly help, and so can many others, guide you and navigate you maybe through those fears to finding the calmer waves and being able to be a lot more at peace within yourself and within your conscience so that you're not in feeling that constant inner conflict within yourself. So be kind to your fears. Your fears are there to let you know that something isn't right. But that doesn't mean to say you have to completely buy into that fear. It's just letting you know that something doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel right, but that doesn't mean to say we avoid it. In fact, the fears are our biggest lesson teachers in life, and we need to work through them, work through those big waves that come crashing down. And yes, one might come crashing down, but that doesn't mean to say that I can't get back up again, take a breath of air, and keep going. So please keep going. If you are feeling overwhelmed, remember, nothing is permanent. It might feel like it at that time, and it might go on for a while, but it isn't permanent. Nothing is permanent in life. Every day there is change. Every day within your own body, is changing. Your skin cells are changing. Your hair is growing. Nothing is permanent. So, can you ride those waves of fear and get through them? And then get to the calmer little ripples of those waves to be able to live a much more authentic within yourself and connect with that authentic smile that we all have within ourselves. And when I say authentic, I mean you feel it from the inside out rather than just that fake, yeah, I'm all right. I'm doing okay. And again, I'm queen of fake smiling. So I know a fake smile when I see a fake smile because I was very good at them myself. Whereas now, I hope when you see my smile, you can see it in my face, you can see it in my eyes. And you can feel it in my heart. This is me. This is who Sue is. Um, Good, bad, and I love every part of me. I love my fears. My fears, I think of my fears as like my best friends. Oh, you've come along. What? Oh, thank you. What do you need? What are you trying to show me? What are you saying that I'm possibly ready to change, ready to confront, and ready to deal with? So be gentle with your fears. Embrace them as a best friend. It might not be the right time to deal with them at that moment, but acknowledge them. They're there for a reason, but they are also there so that you can overcome them and become the person and empower yourself and become that person that you so know that you are really inside, and allow that authentic smile to come shining through so that everyone else can see how authentic that you are and that you are living in peace with yourself. Until the next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Leave any comments below and I will get back to you. Or you can, as I say, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll put those details up at some point. Take care, stay safe, and remember, your fears are there for a reason. Make them become your best friend and allow them to be the gifts that they are and teach you what you need to learn to be able to move on and move forward with an authentic smile. Take care. Bye.